Welcome to Grit, Growth, Grace podcast.
We're your hosts. I'm Chrissy Morgan.
And I'm Kim Gibbs. This space is for women who are ambitious, driven, and ready to make a meaningful impact.
We get it. Navigating success in male-dominated industries can feel very isolating, but you don't have to do it alone.
Here we'll talk about the real challenges, celebrate the wins, and give you practical tools to grow with confidence.
Because it's not just about making it to the top. It's about bringing others with you and thriving in the process.
Let's jump in and get started.
Welcome to Grit, Growth, Grace podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Chrissy Morgan.
Hey, everyone. Today, we're here to talk about action plans, what they are, why you need them, and how to make them work for you. Kim and I both struggle as moms, spouses, leaders, and more. We understand how busy life can get, so we want to share why action planning is so important and how it's helped us thrive personally and professionally. Why is action planning important in balancing personal and personal growth, Kim?
Well, ultimately, action planning sets the foundation. So when I originally started action planning, that's how I perceived it. I saw it as like the runway or the tarmac, if you will. You really can't launch without something like that. So it's essentially putting intention into your goal setting, and it allows for you to be more flexible in that goal setting. The one thing that I find myself as a woman doing frequently is having to say why I'm choosing to do something. And an action plan actually defines that for you very simply. So, especially in a professional environment, it allows for me to explicitly explain the why because I know where I'm going. Why spend the time in action planning versus just a goal, Chrissy?
Well, a lot of people like to make New Year's resolutions and say, oh, I've got this goal for the year, but 92% of the people that make a New Year's resolution don't actually keep them. And it's really related to the fact that it's just, well, this is what I want to do, but they don't put some plan behind it. So it's really about building systems that'll help drive throughout the year so that you've got something to go back to. And it's about the growth and the things that you go through when you have growth. You're going to have failures, you're going to have obstacles. And the key is to recognize it's just about progressing throughout the year, not being about being perfect. As women, we face so many unique challenges. So I just wonder, why did you start action planning and how do you do it intentionally?
So I used to I've set goals a lot in my life, and I know you're like that too. And I think a lot of us are pretty much. I feel like there's natural momentum in the beginning of the year. It's super easy to set a goal, or even when you change a career or have a birthday, it's super easy to set a goal. So for me specifically, I went from goal setting to action planning about a decade ago. I ended up having to do a turnaround, and that turnaround was a result of not having a goal that had an action plan aligned with it. So I had a goal for growth for my company, but I didn't have a goal that said, yes, I'm on track, and what to do if I got off track. So I have since derived action planning with a good, better, best, so that I know that there's flexibility built in. And if those things kind of arise, what to do to take action before a turnaround has to happen. Chrissy, how did action planning yield better results for you than just setting a standard goal? Because I feel like I've seen you grow a lot.
I was really skeptical in the beginning. I've not really done a lot of it throughout my career up until a few years ago. When you first introduced me to putting together some real strategic goals. And since then, implementing it every year, it gets easier, better. It makes me really go through the thought process. And it's led to 2 promotions in the last 3 years. I have a lot more confidence in my career and what I'm doing and where I'm taking my business and team. And it's really helped me to balance my work and my personal life.
So going into action planning, before we plan, we have to set our foundation. So Chrissy, what foundational things are needed for a great action plan?
Well, it's really important to start with a vision statement because you need to know where you're going to go. You need to understand what the vision is and what it is that you want to do. Put together some renewal strategies and how you'll move forward. You can use a SWOT analysis, organizational analysis, and really core values. Those are truly essential to getting, filtering through where it is that you want to go, and make sure it aligns with the person that you are. So how did you go about defining your core values, and how would you say they influence your planning?
Well, I would say my core values, I I became pretty deliberate about my core values with you specifically, in our holding each other accountable, because it's hard to have really, really, really big goals in one area, but other things also be important to you, and you don't ensure that all of your things are aligned. So through time, you sort of figure out who you are, who the ethos of who you are, and what you truly, truly want to impact and how you want to impact that. And then that distills down into some core values. My personal core values, so both you and I know, have personal core values and business related or career core values. And that's different because we both consider those decisions different, right? So if I'm making a decision for a personal life, it doesn't necessarily need to go through the business core value filter. My personal core values are consistency, resourcefulness, and growth. So I always am trying to learn. I'm always trying to better myself, but I also try to be consistent because I have recognized that I'm going to fail all the time. I'm amazing at failing. And when you fail a lot, you have to consistently get back up and go forward. And then my professional ones are doer. No one likes that one, but it's essentially somebody who's willing to take action. Growth in the company itself. I like seeing both growth in the team and as far as their personal development, but then also in the revenue, and then collaboration, making sure that everybody's recognizes not only the impact they bring to the overall organization, but that they are collaborative with everybody else. So that if something violates one of those core values, especially if it's a goal, it usually cannot succeed at some point because it will misalign with who you are as a leader. Chrissy, how have your core values impacted your ability to plan and overcome some barriers?
Well, for me, I think everything that I do personally and professionally, it has to align with my core values. So when I'm looking at things personally, I start with my faith. Is it something that I would do that aligns with my faith as being a Christian? And personal growth, is it going to help me grow personally? And does it make an impact? So am I leaving people better than when they found me? Am I leaving that impression of increase? So making sure that when I walk away, that they feel better about themselves. And that can help me in business as well, but my business ones are slightly different, and it's growth for my team, for the business that I'm working at right now, and future servant leadership, making sure that I'm being there for others, and that goes back to that impact. And then resourcefulness, being able to take what I have at the business and making it work. Sometimes we don't always have the tools, the people that we need, and so it's saying, well, what do I have right now, and how can I meet the goal that I'm trying to do with what I do have. So going into that, what strategies do you use to set and launch your action plan?
So for me specifically, my number one strategy is to always have at least one personal and two professional. And the reason I say one personal is two professional is I work full time, as do you. When you work full time, when you're talking about your 24/7, the reality is that the majority of the time is geared to work. So two of mine are always professional and one of mine is always personal. I was reminded this last year because I had a baby 2.5 years ago, and in that I didn't remove myself from the business. I worked the whole time. I worked when you own a business, you don't necessarily get maternity leave the way everybody else does. So I didn't get that huge break, but I had created this space, and it felt good at the time because I really got to be a mom, and I was very excited about that part of my life, and it absolutely made me a fuller person. But I saw things slipping, and having you in my life helped me to see that there were things that I could make an impact on, that I needed to go all in. So last year I went all in, and I went pretty hard on my professional goals, and I sort of let my personal goals sort of by the wayside. It's not like I didn't participate at all in my personal goal. I just really went so hard on my professional goals. I missed an opportunity to see my grandmother before she passed. And I'm sure a lot of us are, have those situations where you have deadlines at work and you have to go or you don't. And she lived across the country. It wasn't like I could just drive down the street and say, "How are you doing?" So it was a big to do, and I have a toddler, and I feel like I made the wrong choice, and I will never not make sure that my personal goal isn't aligned now in a weekly way. So that's my number one that I follow. How about you? What are some ways that you might reverse engineer goals to achieve them, or other tips you might have?
I always like to tell people and myself, start with the end in mind. So you want to know where do you want to be at the end of the year? You really need to understand, which goes back to that vision. What is the vision? Where do you want to be? And then break that into smaller projects, because if you try to just dive right in and look at this big, huge goal, it can be very daunting. It's like looking at a flight of stairs and trying to take one giant leap to the top. That's not how typical people get to the top of the stairs. They do one step at a time. And I always like to tell people and use that analogy to say, break it up into little tiny goals. Give yourself quarterly goals that are much more achievable, that don't seem nearly as daunting and as big a task, and then pair that all up so that by the end of the year, you know where you want to be. And then incorporate accountability. I mean, you and I know over the last few years of building this partnership how important having an accountability partner is, not just in your family life, but in your professional life. Having someone that's going to, check in on you. And you and I meet every week. And every week we walk away with what I like to call our homework. So the next week, we know that each one of us is going to ask that question. Did you get this done? Did you get that done? And I know you're going to be hard on me, and you're going to expect me to have it done. And I don't want to let you down. And knowing that I need to give you that answer the following week, helps me to really stay on task and be consistent. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have fires and things are going to come up, but it just know that you'll just keep moving forward every day. So in doing that, we talked about, some of the things that you use. What would you say are some smarter goals that are important, and how do they help you?
So I do 100% believe in smarter goals. I'm sure my team loves my emails that are, I'm not sure this is a SMART goal email, but SMART goals, if you are wondering, are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant. Sometimes people say realistic, but I would say relevant, because it could be realistic, but not relevant. Time bound, you evaluate it regularly, and then you also, the R is to reward yourself or come up with some sort of at least reflection at the very least. But some people, including you and me, are working on a reward component. So, but the most important things are that they're specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant. And when I say achievable, they don't need to be achievable today. They don't even need to be achievable this year. But in order for you to really recognize if you can get there, you do sort of have to break it down and say, you have to make it just a little bit, I don't want to call it smaller, more specific. I'm sure this happens to you a lot with your team. We both are in manufacturing, for those of you who don't know that. But we both are in very male-dominated spaces. And you'd be amazed how people come, often men, to you, especially as a woman, and have the idea, the goal. And it's something like, I want the shop to be cleaner. Well, that's not really a SMART goal. Yeah, it's relevant, but that's not it at all. And anybody who has been in manufacturing or ever improving a process knows that that's not how one goes about making a shop cleaner. They don't just announce it to their boss or announce it to another woman and hope that it miraculously happens. But that I've had that as a SMART goal from a person before, and I did send it back and say, okay, how are you going to make this a SMART goal? So let's talk about staying on track. One of the things I think that you and I do is our accountability partners, but we meet, we share goals, we regularly meet with our teams. That's something that I think is, and we make our with their SMART goals, and we find out why they're off course and how we can be supportive. What about you? Is there any other tips that you would have to summarize all the little nuances we use in getting action plans launched?
I would say share it. Definitely share it with the team. It helps so much when you let people know what you're doing, whether it's a personal, professional goal. To kind of use the analogy of losing weight or something like that for a personal goal, letting people know that you're trying to lose weight so that they can be on board with you. And if you go out, they can help you make smart choices, or they're not encouraging you to eat bad food or something when you're out with your teams at work. When they know what the plan is and they know what the strategies and the goals are, then you can be accountable to each other and work towards making sure that you meet that for whatever the time frame is, whether it's the quarter or the month or the year or something like that. So Kim, can you go through and just help us summarize some of the top ways that we can create an action plan to help people out there?
Yeah, so 2 professional, 1 personal. And again, that's just the way I do it because the majority of my time is at work, and 100% you can do it however you want, but I definitely encourage you to make sure there's at least a little balance there. And I wouldn't set 10 goals either. You could break down a goal into 10 little goals, but definitely I wouldn't set 10 goals and be like, okay, I've got 10 humongous goals, I'm going to go for all of them. That's a lot. But if you planned well enough, you potentially could do it. Smarter goals, reverse engineer. I feel like that's something that I've watched you do time and time again with your resourcefulness, and had so much success because you've always started with the end in mind and been like, here's the resources I have. How can I creatively navigate that? I've seen you be successful as a leader doing that multiple times. Balancing your goal or using that filter of core values, and then having an accountability partner. And we are wanting to do this podcast to be supportive of that. We recognize the value in having another woman say, yeah, go for it. Do the thing. Be aggressive if you need to be. Go crazy and get your, go for your goals. And so I think having an accountability partner who will high five you in that versus ask you why is helpful. Let's talk about, sorry.
Yeah, you have some really ambitious goals for yourself. And so what kind of tools would you say help maintain balance while pursuing those ambitious goals?
Well, my number 1 tool I use, and this is after trying a lot of tools. So for the reason I call it my number 1 tool is it works best for me. I 100% don't know. Like, I can tell you, my husband, who I own my business with, he hates this because he feels like he's then like boxed into something. And then if it pops up on his thing and he's in a jive, he's going to not be able to finish it. So this doesn't work for him, but it totally works for me, and it's time blocking. So I wear a lot of hats. I think a lot of people in leadership wear a lot of hats. Their number 1 vital function might be to make something happen, but they also have a team that they also have to ensure is taken care of and service. So those are 2 different hats. And so time blocking allows for you to go, like, in the mornings, I'm fresher. I need to solve my problems in the morning, and in the afternoon, I can do my more mundane tasks because that's less decision making for me. And then if I delegate the tasks. So when I look at my time blocking, if there are tasks on there that, yes, are relevant, but I could have somebody else do them, I have somebody else do them so that I can spend more time on my vital tasks.
Oh, yeah.
What would you say your number 1 tool for staying on track is?
I like using the Pomodoro technique where you work for about 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. I'll schedule jam sessions like you in the morning where I like to time block in the morning because that's when my mind is the most fresh too. But it can be really easy to get in the groove, and then next thing you know, you're kind of getting burned out a little bit because you spent so much time on something. So it's always good to take that little break. But box you said box yourself in. You really want to give yourself that time, so you want to eliminate all the distractions when you are doing that. Reflection and review to make sure that I have clarity as to what I'm working on, and am I making progress on the vital things, because just because you're busy, it doesn't mean you're being productive. So you want to make sure that you're working on the right things, not just doing things to check boxes and make yourself feel better. You want to make sure that you're working on, the hard tasks that are going to get you to the goal at the end of the year. And, knowing that sometimes goals can be really big or scary sometimes because you are going out there and you want to go big. How do you keep the momentum when it's a grind to try to hit the goals that you're trying to reach?
Well, momentum is one of those things that anybody who does action planning usually will hit a moment in their action plan where they lose their momentum. So we all go through it. I definitely think the grind component is the most challenging component, but it is also why my core value is consistency, because that consistency of doing it over and over again forces me to do it. So my number one way to keep momentum has been to do, which I have it on my calendar as next week prep, but I prep for the next week on Friday afternoon. I reflect on my past week. I ensure it's aligned with my action plan. Like what's my goal for the quarter? Am I working on those things for the week? What do my time blocks look like? And then this way I can set myself up on Monday where I'm walking into a fresh list. I know what I'm going to do right when I walk in. If a fire happens, I can then come back to that and still have that momentum in the thing that I know is going to move the needle for my goal. And as we all know, in manufacturing, we very rarely are closed. So it is very rare to come in on a Monday and not have something that is not on that list that is waiting for you.
So true.
So there's momentum. It just may not be in the right direction. So keeping that reflection and keeping the push is definitely been my number one. But it took me probably, I don't know, 3 years to figure out that really helped me to stay the course. I do want to share one thing about that you've said to me about busy, not productive. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And you told me that your kids, instead of asking you if you had a good day, they instead ask you if you had a productive day. And I think that's such a good perspective because of this grind. The grind isn't pretty, but it doesn't mean that it's not productive. And frankly, when you do set large goals and you are in leadership, sometimes you don't have a lot to actually show what you got done. But when you have an action plan, you can say, oh, well, here's on my action plan and I got these 3 things done. And even though they don't seem that miraculous, I know over time I'll hit that. So I love that your kids ask you that. So I just thought I'd share that because I thought an awesome thing. Let's talk about how we set our vision in motion. How do we do this? Chrissy, how can people maintain momentum with their action plans?
Well, it's focusing on the little gains, 1% every day, just a little bit better every day. There's going to be setbacks, but just knowing that you're putting in the effort, you're staying consistent and moving forward. Funny how you mentioned the kids, because when I do come home and say my day was more busy than productive, we have a little conversation about it and we talk about what I'm going to do the next day. And it's nice that I can share that somewhat with the family, but also prepare myself for the next day. And it really does boil down to that consistency. You don't have to be perfect all the time. It's just making sure that you show up every day, stay consistent, follow the plan, do the best that you can. To me, it's like building a muscle. You just don't go to the gym and, pump the dumbbells a couple times and, you're suddenly Arnold Schwarzenegger. You have to keep doing it over and over and over again, and then you build that muscle. And so, to me, that's what's really important is just the consistency and focusing on getting better and, giving yourself grace when you do have some of those setbacks. So what about you, Kim? What would you say is a tip for you for all the humans out there who want to achieve more with less stress?
Well, so I think the no matter what suggestion I have is just to take action. And if you're in a space mentally or at work where you just have so much going on and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, or you are a leader, but you also have family stuff happening and you're our age and you have parents that you're taking care of and toddlers you're taking care of and kids going to college that you have to pay for and all of these things, that's a lot on a plate. So if you just go, what's the one thing that would positively impact my day today? And do that thing. And it could be literally having a good breakfast or enjoying your cup of coffee for 5 minutes. I mean, it does not need to be this monumental thing. It could be very, very small, as long as it's specific and you take that action. And I feel like if you did that 3 days in a row, you would be amazed at how much more clarity you can gain and momentum. Thank you so much for taking a bit of your time to spend with me, Chrissy. I always love seeing your face. What action do you think our team members might take? I don't know why I'm calling them team members. The people that listen, the people who are listening, what action would you take to move towards your goal? It doesn't need to be to hit your goal, just to move towards your goal.
Well, it's always awesome to get positive feedback. And I appreciate your openness and willingness to share the impactful action planning. And we'd love to hear, some of the, what were some of the most impactful tips that we shared today, and some things that you can share to help be impactful for others. And we'd love to get that feedback and, see what you have to say. And we just appreciate you and look forward to you joining us next time when we discuss fear and coping mechanisms to overcome it.
Yep, because we all know we fail a lot, and sometimes that can make us a little fearful. Yes, I'm excited for next time. Thank you again. I appreciate you very, very much. We'll see you soon.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks for spending time with us on Grit, Growth, Grace podcast. We hope today's episode gave you new insights and a spark to start planning with purpose.
Remember, growth happens one step at a time. Take something from today, whether it's a tool, a quote, or just a fresh perspective, and put it into action this week.
And don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who's ready to plan their way to success.
We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media, like and follow, or just let us know how you're taking charge of your goals.
Until next time, keep building with grit, growing with intention, and leading with grace. We'll see you soon.